You're wrong about what matter is, not because you're careless or uninformed. You're wrong because the way your brain evolved to understand the world makes the truth almost impossible to see. I mean, look around you. Everything feels solid, continuous, stable. The floor doesn't shimmer with gaps. Your hands don't pass through each other. Water pours smoothly. Air feels like nothing at all. So the obvious conclusion, the one I also default to, is that matter is basically smooth stuff. Maybe you can cut it into smaller pieces, but it's still the same thing, just scaled down. That intuition feels unavoidable, and it's quietly, fundamentally incorrect. Let me show you where it breaks. Imagine tearing a piece of paper in half, then in half, again, then again. Nothing surprising happens. It's still paper, smaller, sure, but recognizably the same material, so I'm tempted to think I can keep going forever. But the moment I ask myself, what is the smallest piece of paper that is still paper, I hit a wall, because if I keep cutting, eventually it stops behaving like paper at all. No stiffness, no fibers, no tearing. The intuition doesn't fail dramatically. It just runs out of road. Now let me anchor this in something physical. Take a breath, not a deep one, just a normal breath. Feel the air enter your nose. It feels smooth, continuous, passive. But that sensation, pressure, warmth, flow is not smooth at all. What's actually happening is that unimaginably many tiny entities are slamming into the inside of your lungs, rebounding, transferring momentum. That pressure you feel is not air being there. It's motion, impacts, statistics. You don't feel the individual collisions for the same reason you don't feel individual raindrops in a heavy storm. They blur into an average. And this is the first place perception betrays us, because our senses report averages, not mechanisms. So I'm forced to shift the question. Not what does matter feel like, but what must matter be made of for this behavior to occur? If matter can exert pressure, then something must be moving. If it can heat up, then something must be storing and exchanging energy. If it can diffuse, compress, expand, then whatever it's made of must be discrete enough to rearrange. At this point, I don't get to choose atoms as a philosophical preference. I'm cornered into them by behavior. Matter has to be made of moving pieces, and not vague pieces, persistent ones, identical ones, units that retain their identity while participating in motion. This is the atomic idea in its most stripped down form. Now, this is a simplified way to think about it, but it's accurate enough to build on. Atoms are tiny objects in perpetual motion, attracting and repelling each other according to precise rules. Everything else, pressure, temperature, solidity, chemistry, is a consequence of that motion. But here's where intuition really collapses. Rub your fingers together slowly. Feel the friction. Every instinct you have says your skin is scraping against another surface, making direct contact. That's not what's happening. The atoms in your fingers never actually touch the atoms in the other surface. What you feel as contact is the electromagnetic resistance between electron structures refusing to occupy the same states. So already the word touch is lying to you. There is no point where one solid thing presses directly against another solid thing. There is only force, interaction, constraint. Matter feels solid, not because it's packed solid, but because its internal rules are rigid. And this leads to a statement that sounds absurd until you sit with it. Most of the space inside matter is empty. Not metaphorically empty, literally empty. If I scale an atom up to the size of a large room, the nucleus is a speck and the electrons are patterns, regions where interactions happen, not little beads filling space. Between them is vast nothingness. And yet, you can't fall through the floor. That's the paradox perception can't resolve. So I need a better analogy. Think about a crowded room where everyone has their arms outstretched and refuses to let anyone else cross their personal boundary. The room is technically full of space, but functionally rigid. You can't move through it, not because there's no space, but because of rules enforced by interactions. That's closer, but even that analogy breaks because atoms aren't people and they aren't static. They vibrate, they exchange energy, they bind temporarily and break apart. They're more like stable patterns than objects, which means solidity is not a fundamental property of reality. It's an emergent one. And that's not the whole story yet, because once I accept atoms as the explanation for pressure and temperature, I'm tempted to stop, to say, okay, matter is made of atoms, mystery solved. But the atomic picture does more than explain matter. It explains scale, why large objects behave predictably, why small fluctuations average out, why the world feels continuous even though it isn't. When I heat something up, I'm not adding a substance called heat. I'm increasing the average kinetic energy of atoms. When something cools, atoms slow down. Temperature is not a thing. It's a measure of motion. This means that stillness at the atomic level doesn't really exist. Even in what I call a solid object at room temperature, atoms are vibrating constantly, locked into place, yes, but restless. So now I widen the lens. If everything around me is atoms in motion, then the air, the oceans, the earth itself are not static structures. They're dynamic systems, statistical systems. And when I push this outward to the atmosphere, to planets, to stars, the same logic holds. Stars are not glowing objects in the way a light bulb is an object. They are ongoing processes, collections of particles moving, colliding, reacting. The same atomic rules that explain the pressure in your lungs explain the pressure in the core of a star. There isn't a boundary where different physics takes over, just different scales, different densities, different averages. And this is where the perspective flips. The universe is not made of things. It's made of behavior. Stable behavior persists long enough that we give it a name. Rock, water, body, planet, star. But underneath the name is motion. Now I turn that lens back inward. Right now, as I'm thinking this through, the atoms that make up my body are not the same atoms that were here years ago. They've been exchanged, replaced, rearranged, and yet I remain, which means identity is not atomic, it's organizational. I'm not a collection of specific atoms, I'm a pattern that atoms temporarily occupy. That's not mystical, it's mechanical. And it explains something subtle about human limitation. We evolved to perceive stable patterns, not underlying motion. To survive, I don't need to see atoms. I need to see tables, cliffs, food, other people. So my brain reports a simplified world where continuity is assumed. The atomic reality is always there, but it's filtered out. So when I say, well, you're wrong about what matter is, I don't mean you're mistaken in daily life. Your model works at your scale. It just doesn't reach all the way down. And now I can return to where I started. The glass of water pouring onto the table still looks smooth, still behaves smoothly. Nothing about daily experience changes. What changes is my understanding of why it behaves that way. The smoothness is an illusion created by numbers. The solidity is an illusion created by rules. The stillness is an illusion created by averaging. Underneath, everything is moving. Everything is structured emptiness held together by interaction. And the most humbling part of all of this is that the same atoms obeying these simple rules are the ones making it possible for me to think about them at all. I don't stand apart from this picture. I am it. I am atoms thinking about atoms, temporarily arranged in a way that can ask the question and just barely glimpse the answer.